Silence spread across the stars like a slow shadow. It began in the inner systems, where the Dragon King's presence had always been strongest. His territory was vast, filled with glowing nebulae and artificial suns built only to feed him. For 10,000 cycles he had never refused a single offering. Until now. The Dragon King lay coiled around his throne of dark metal and living stone. His scales, once bright like burning embers, looked dull. His massive chest rose and fell slowly. Before him floated a sphere of compressed stellar energy, rich and perfect. It was the finest meal the galaxy could create. He did not touch it. Servant drones hovered at a careful distance, their sensors flashing warnings. They transmitted the same message again and again across the Empire. The Dragon King had not eaten. Not today. Not yesterday. Not the day before. Across nearby worlds, alarms began to sound. On the observation moon of Vale Cross, scholars gathered in fear. Tall windows showed the Dragon King's distant domain, glowing faintly like a dying star. Old records were opened. Ancient files were unlocked. The scholars did not speak loudly. They did not need to. Everyone knew the legend. When a Dragon King loses his hunger, it means he has lost his reason to remain calm. Long ago, another Dragon King had stopped eating. Within a single cycle, entire systems had vanished. Not from anger but from indifference. A hungry Dragon King destroys. A Dragon King with no appetite does something far worse. He stops caring. Admiral Corin Vesh stood stiffly in the command hall, his hands clasped behind his back. He was a being of crystal and flesh, bred for war and order. His voice echoed as he spoke to the council. He has rejected plasma, solar cores, and quantum mass, Corin said. He has rejected every offering. A soft murmur moved through the hall. He cannot be poisoned, said a council elder. He cannot be ill. His body is beyond decay. Then what is wrong with him? Another asked. No one answered. Far from the council halls, far from the Dragon King's throne, there was a small human settlement drifting near the edge of mapped space. It was barely noticed by the wider galaxy. It had no weapons worth stealing. No energy worth mining. Just metal walls, recycled air, and people who fixed what broke instead of replacing it. On that station, a human named Edrin Hale floated near a small window, watching stars pass by. The station hummed softly. It was mealtime, and the smell of something warm drifted through the narrow corridors. Edrin stirred a pot slowly. Inside it was soup. Nothing special. Water, roots, dried leaves, and a little salt. A recipe passed down, changed many times but always simple. He cooked when he felt tired. He cooked when the station felt too quiet. He did not know that entire empires were panicking. Back in the Dragon King's domain, another offering was brought forward. This one was rare matter harvested from a collapsing star. The servants waited. The Dragon King opened one great eye. It glowed faintly, then dimmed. He turned his head away. A wave of fear rippled outward. Messages were sent faster than thought. Fleets were placed on alert. Borders were sealed. Trade routes froze. Some species preyed. Others prepared to flee. The Dragon King remembered everything. He remembered the wars fought in his name. The screams that echoed through space when he first rose. He remembered being called a god, then a king, then a weapon. He remembered when fear tasted like power. Now everything tasted like nothing. The energy offerings felt empty. Perfect, yes. Powerful, yes. But empty. They filled his body, not his mind. And his mind was tired. Advisors gathered at the edge of his chamber. None dared to approach too close. He must be reminded of his duty, one whispered. He must be stimulated, said another. Perhaps conflict. The Dragon King's tail shifted slightly. The chamber shook. The advisors fell silent. Conflict no longer interested him. In the outer systems, a final signal was sent. Not to armies. Not to scientists. But to anyone, anywhere, who might understand hunger beyond fuel and function. The signal was old, written in a forgotten code. It asked a simple question. What makes one want to eat? Most species ignored it. Some mocked it. A few tried to answer with equations. On the human station, the signal flickered briefly across a public console. It was translated roughly, poorly. Edrin noticed it while carrying his bowl. He stopped. The message felt strange. Not dangerous. Just sad. What makes one want to eat? He read quietly. He thought of long shifts, cold metal floors, and empty days. He thought of his mother cooking when power was low. He thought of warmth. He looked down at his soup. Elsewhere, the Dragon King closed his eyes. Stars dimmed slightly around his domain, reacting to his slowing systems. The galaxy held its breath. No one knew it yet, but the answer to the greatest fear in the stars was not hidden in weapons, science, or power. It was drifting quietly in a small human station, rising as steam from a simple pot. The smallest ship did not look like hope. It drifted slowly through a crowded docking ring at the edge of Dragon King space. Around it floated massive warships, research cruisers, and diplomatic vessels covered in lights and armor. Their hulls shined. Their crews wore symbols of power. The small ship had scratches, faded paint, and a single engine that hummed unevenly. Most ships were turned away. Guards scanned them, then sent them back. No one was allowed closer unless they carried something new, something useful, something powerful. The small ship carried none of that. Inside, a human sat alone in the pilot's seat. The human's hands were steady, but the heart was not. The message had reached many places, but only a few had felt it. This human had felt it deeply. The message had not asked for weapons. It had not asked for energy. It had asked a question that felt personal. Why does one want to eat? The human had no great answer. Only a memory. The ship's cargo hold was not filled with rare items. It held containers carefully sealed. Inside them were simple things. Dried plants, roots, spices, old tools, a small heating unit, a metal pot. When the ship was stopped by the Dragon King's outer guards, a cold voice filled the cabin. State your purpose. The human swallowed and answered simply. I came to answer the question. There was a pause. Explain. I don't have a weapon, the human said. I don't have technology. I only have something made by hand. Laughter echoed across the channel from nearby ships. A human craft? One voice said. This is an insult. Send it away, another demanded. The guard voice remained neutral. You carry no offering recognized by protocol. The human looked down at the console, then spoke again. Then changed the protocol. Silence followed. Not anger. Not laughter. Just silence. Far away, deep within the Dragon King's chamber, a signal reached ancient systems. It was marked as low priority. Human. Unarmed. Insignificant. Yet something about it lingered. The Dragon King did not open his eyes. But the signal was not erased. Let it pass, came the command, heavy and slow. The guards froze. Confirm, the guard voice said carefully. Let the human pass. The small ship moved forward. As it traveled deeper, the human saw things no human had ever seen. Stars bent unnaturally. Structures the size of moons floated without support. Servant constructs moved like shadows, silent and precise. Fear grew with every second. The human's mind tried to turn back. Logic screamed that this was a mistake. That humans were small. That Dragon Kings did not listen to humans. But the memory stayed strong. Warmth. A quiet room. A simple meal after a long empty day. The ship finally docked within a vast chamber. The space inside felt heavy, as if gravity itself was watching. The human stepped out slowly, carrying a small container in both hands. The Dragon King lay coiled in the darkness ahead. His size was beyond understanding. Each breath felt like distant thunder. The human's legs shook, but did not stop. Servant constructs surrounded the human, scanning, analyzing, ready to erase the smallest threat. There is nothing here, one transmitted. No energy spike. No weapon. The human spoke before fear could take control. I was not sent, the human said. I came because I wanted to. The Dragon King's eye opened slightly. Just enough. You are small, the Dragon King said. His voice pressed against the human's chest like a weight. You bring nothing I need. The human nodded. I know. Then why are you here? The human took a slow breath. Because hunger is not always about fuel, the human said. Sometimes it is about feeling alive. The Dragon King was silent. The human carefully placed the container on the floor and opened it. Inside was a metal pot. The human activated the heating unit. A soft sound filled the chamber. Soon, a gentle smell began to spread. It was not strong. It was not sharp. It was quiet. The servants reacted first. Their sensors showed unknown compounds. Organic. Harmless. What is that? The Dragon King asked. Food, the human said. Not for strength. Not for power. For comfort. The Dragon King shifted slightly. The chamber trembled. I have consumed stars, the Dragon King said. I have tasted matter older than time. Why would this interest me? The human looked up, meeting the vast eye. Because stars don't care if you are tired, the human said softly. But this was made by someone who did. Silence returned. The smell drifted closer. For the first time in many cycles, the Dragon King focused on something without calculation. Without threat. Without fear. Curiosity stirred. The smallest ship had answered the call. And against all reason, the galaxy had not ended. Not yet. The chamber felt even larger once the soup began to warm. The human stood very still beside the small heating unit. The pot rested between shadows that could swallow cities. The Dragon King watched without moving, his single open eye reflecting the faint steam rising into the air. The smell spread slowly. It was not strong enough to trigger alarms. It did not burn or sting. It did not demand attention. It simply existed, calm and steady, like a quiet memory returning without warning. The servant constructs adjusted their sensors again and again. They could not understand it. No threat detected, one reported. No energy gain measured. The Dragon King ignored them. "What have you placed before me?" he asked. The human kept his voice low. Not from fear but respect. "Soup," he said again. "It is made slowly. It takes time." "Time is meaningless to me," the Dragon King replied. "I know," the human said. "That's why it matters." The Dragon King's eye narrowed slightly. That small movement sent a deep vibration through the chamber. The human's chest tightened, but he did not step back. "Explain," the Dragon King said. The human looked down at the pot, watching the liquid move gently. "When humans cook like this," he said, "we are not rushing. We wait. We stand there. We think. We remember. We let the food change us while we change it." The Dragon King had heard many explanations in his long life. None like this. "You believe this will restore my hunger," the Dragon King said. "No," the human answered honestly. "I think it might remind you why hunger mattered in the first place." Silence followed. The Dragon King extended a single claw, careful, precise. It hovered over the pot. Heat that could melt armor brushed past the human, but the soup did not boil faster. It stayed calm. The Dragon King paused. This confused him. Everything around him reacted to his presence. Stars bent. Matter obeyed. Fear spread. But this small thing did none of that. "Why does it not fear me?" he asked. The human smiled faintly. "It doesn't know you're a king," he said. "It only knows it was made to be shared." The Dragon King lowered his claw and dipped just the tip into the soup. Sensors flared. The servants reacted in alarm, ready to pull the human away. The Dragon King tasted. For a long moment nothing happened. Then the Dragon King's eye widened. Not in shock. Not in pain. In recognition. The flavor was simple. Warm. Balanced. It did not overwhelm. It did not demand. It did not try to impress. It filled a space the Dragon King had forgotten existed. Images rose uninvited. A time before the throne. Before the title. Before the fear. A dark chamber smaller than this one. Voices not raised in terror but concern. Hands that built, not worshipped. A body not designed to rule but to live. The Dragon King pulled his claw back slowly. The chamber remained intact. The servants waited for destruction that did not come. "This is not fuel," the Dragon King said quietly. "No," the human replied. "It's a pause." The Dragon King shifted his great body, uncoiling slightly. The pressure in the chamber eased. Lights steadied. Distant systems stopped flickering. "You made this," the Dragon King said. "Yes." "Why?" The human thought for a moment. "Because I missed home," he said. The word echoed strangely in the vast space. "Home," the Dragon King repeated. "Yes," the human said. "A place where eating means you survived another day. Where someone cared enough to make something warm." The Dragon King lowered his head. The movement alone created a soft wind that passed over the human. "I have ruled for longer than your species has recorded time," the Dragon King said. "I have consumed to maintain balance. To prevent collapse. Never for comfort." The human nodded. "That's a heavy way to live," he said. The Dragon King did not deny it. He dipped his claw again, this time deeper. He tasted more. The servants did not interfere. They could only watch. With each taste, the Dragon King felt something loosen. Not weakness. Not loss. Something tight, held for too long, began to release. "This food does not make me stronger," the Dragon King said. "No," the human agreed. "It does not increase my power." "No. Yet I want more." The human's shoulders relaxed slightly. "That's how it works," he said. The Dragon King lifted his head and looked at the human fully now. "You did not fear coming here," the Dragon King said. "I was afraid," the human answered. "But I came anyway." "Why?" The human met the massive gaze. Because if the strongest being in the galaxy feels empty, he said, then maybe strength alone isn't enough. The Dragon King was silent for a long time. Then he spoke, his voice no longer crushing but thoughtful. Stay, he said. Make more. The human nodded. Outside the chamber, across the watching stars, something changed. The Dragon King had not eaten much. But for the first time in ages he had wanted to. The Dragon King remained coiled in his vast chamber, the faint steam from the pot curling around his claws. The human stood quietly waiting. He had done nothing heroic. He had carried no weapon, no technology, no energy core. Only a simple meal. And yet, the change in the Dragon King was undeniable. Why does this affect me? The Dragon King asked, his voice low, vibrating like distant thunder. I have eaten stars, planets, whole fleets. Nothing has ever stirred me like this. The human tilted his head slightly. Because you are not hungry for energy, he said. You are hungry for something else. The Dragon King's single eye focused sharply, narrowing. Explain. Fear, power, control, all of it weighs on you, the human said softly. You feed to maintain balance. You consume to keep the galaxy in line. But your mind is tired. Your hunger was not for food, it was for purpose, for meaning, for something you lost long ago. The Dragon King let out a low rumble that echoed through the chamber. Meaning, he said. I am beyond need. I rule everything. I have no weakness left. And yet, I feel empty. Yes, the human said. And that emptiness can't be filled by anything you have used before. Not stars. Not matter. Not fear. Only something small. Something made with care, not power. The Dragon King paused. Memories rose unbidden, images of long ago, before he became a king, before he became feared. A small cave lit by fire. Hands that built things instead of destroyed. Voices of creatures who depended on him, not because of fear but because of trust. The taste of simple food shared quietly without ceremony. I had forgotten this, the Dragon King admitted, his voice quieter than the human had ever heard. I forgot that hunger can be personal. That it can be more than necessity. The human nodded. You have carried the weight of the galaxy for so long that you forgot what it means to be alive. A low wind passed through the chamber as the Dragon King shifted. The servants sensed it and stiffened, expecting sudden movement or wrath. But there was none. Only reflection. Why do you know this? The Dragon King asked. Your species is small, weak, fragile. You are not designed for ruling stars. You are insignificant. The human smiled faintly. That's why I know it. Because we survive by noticing what others ignore. By finding comfort in little things, even when everything else is impossible. By feeding not for power but for care. The Dragon King lowered his massive head closer to the human, studying him with an intensity that felt almost gentle. You have done what no other being could. You have reminded me of myself. Of the creature I once was. I didn't do it for you, the human said. I did it because it mattered to me. The Dragon King's tail coiled slightly, brushing the floor with a soft vibration. And yet it affects me more than anything else in centuries. He paused, reflecting. I have ruled through fear. I have consumed to maintain order. I have eaten stars to ensure balance. But none of it filled the void. None of it reminded me that I am alive. You needed something human, the human said simply. Something small, ordinary, and honest. You needed to remember that not all strength comes from power. Some strength comes from care. The Dragon King remained silent, tasting the words as if they were nourishment. The pot of soup had cooled slightly, but its effect lingered. It was not just food, it was a bridge, a reminder, a spark in the darkness that stretched across the vastness of his life. Why did I lose my hunger? The Dragon King asked finally. Was it not simply fatigue? Not simply exhaustion? No, the human said. It was not food you lost. It was the memory of why you needed it. Hunger is not always for the body. Sometimes it is for the mind, for connection, for care. You forgot that part of yourself. The Dragon King considered this. The chamber, once oppressive, felt calmer. The air seemed lighter, though it was the same as before. The stars outside flickered gently. For the first time in cycles, the Dragon King did not feel the crushing weight of expectation. He felt curiosity. Humans, he said slowly. You are small, fragile, and yet powerful in ways I cannot consume or destroy. The human shrugged lightly. We survive by noticing, by making small things matter. By cooking a meal, by caring when it is easier not to. That's our strength. The Dragon King's massive body shifted again. The servants sensed it and readied themselves for sudden destruction. But instead he simply lowered himself slightly, letting the human move freely. The Dragon King's eye softened. "You have reminded me," the Dragon King said. "Reminded me that the galaxy is not just balance, not just order, not just fear. There are things, small things, that sustain life in ways I had forgotten. Care, patience, attention, comfort." The human nodded. "Exactly." The Dragon King's voice deepened, almost thoughtful. "Perhaps I have been ruling incorrectly. Perhaps I have been consuming incorrectly. Perhaps I have been hungry for the wrong things." The human smiled faintly. "Then maybe it's time to eat for the right reason." The Dragon King looked at the pot again. It was small, ordinary, simple. And yet, it held more power than any star, any weapon, any empire. He lowered his claw, careful this time, and tasted once more. The flavor spread not through his body but through his mind. Warmth, memory, comfort. The emptiness began to fade. "Tell me," the Dragon King said softly, "will you stay? Will you continue to remind me?" The human nodded. "I can." "Then perhaps," the Dragon King said, "the galaxy will survive not because of my strength, but because of your smallness." And in that vast chamber, amidst the silence of stars and the soft hiss of a simple human soup, the Dragon King understood the truth. Hunger is not always physical. It is something deeper, something the galaxy had long forgotten. Something only the smallest, most ordinary beings could remind even a king of. For the first time in cycles, the Dragon King felt whole. Not fed, not fueled, not powerful, just alive. And that was enough. The Dragon King moved differently after that day. He no longer lay coiled and silent for cycles at a time. He rose, stretched, and spoke in ways that startled the galaxy. His voice, once only of command and fear, now carried curiosity. Observers from distant systems whispered among themselves. Something had changed in him. Something no star, no weapon, no empire had ever done. The human remained beside him, carrying the simple pot and supplies, moving freely in the great chamber. The servants still hovered at the edges, their sensors alert, but they no longer expected destruction. The Dragon King's attention was different now. It lingered on small things, on patterns, on smells, on the warmth of careful effort. "It is strange," the Dragon King said, stretching his massive wings to create soft winds that stirred the chamber, "how small acts can carry more weight than power itself." The human smiled faintly. "That is why we survive. Humans are small, but we make what matters bigger than anything else." The Dragon King studied him, eye reflecting faint starlight. "You have reminded me of something I forgot long ago. Not fear. Not control. Not conquest. But care. Comfort. Attention. That is a form of strength I never understood." Word traveled quickly through the stars. Not through ships, not through diplomats, not through armies, but through messengers who had witnessed the human in the Dragon King's chamber. Humans who had once been dismissed as weak and unimportant, now carried influence simply because of one small act. The Dragon King made a decision. A new law of power. He summoned all nearby systems to listen. Ships lined the edges of the void, watching the impossible happen. "Humans," he said, his voice deep, soft, and commanding, "are no longer insignificant. Their strength does not come from force, technology, or speed. Their strength comes from patience, care, and creation. From the ability to make meaning when all else seems empty. They are to be protected. Their ways are to be honored." Across countless worlds, creatures paused. Scholars took notes. Commanders frowned and wondered what this meant for fleets and strategy. Traders whispered nervously. But none questioned the Dragon King. When he speaks, the galaxy obeys. The human did not speak during the declaration. He only watched, quietly, as the Dragon King's massive eye softened in the direction of the small pot and the simple meal it contained. The Dragon King then turned to his closest servants. "Ensure that no harm comes to human settlements. Provide what they need to continue their work. Not because of obligation. Not because of fear. But because their actions matter more than the strongest weapon." The servants, who had never before received such a command, executed it without hesitation. Their programming bent around a new priority, one the galaxy had never imagined. Care as law, creation as strategy. The human finally spoke. "You could have asked for anything else," he said. "Energy, technology, armies. You chose this." The Dragon King's voice rumbled, almost contemplative. "I have spent countless cycles consuming and ruling. I have learned that nothing I take brings the fulfillment I seek. Only small acts of care remind me that life has value beyond power. Outside the chamber, the fleets and observers watched the stars respond. Energy flows shifted subtly. Systems that were tense with fear relaxed. A ripple passed through the galaxy, not violent, not catastrophic, but profound. Small systems, previously considered irrelevant, were now essential. Humans, ordinary in every measure, had become a source of balance. The human looked at the Dragon King. "And you'll eat again?" he asked. The Dragon King tilted his massive head, glancing at the small pot. "Yes," he said slowly. "But now I will eat, not because I must, not because I am forced, but because I choose to. Because even the strongest need what is simple and true." Over the next cycles, human cooks and simple meals became a regular part of the Dragon King's routine. Not because he required energy he never had, but because these acts reminded him that life had moments worth savoring. Fleets and diplomats marveled at the change. A Dragon King who listened. A Dragon King who appreciated. A Dragon King who valued care as much as control. In quiet corners of space, scholars whispered that the galaxy had entered a new era. One in which power was not only measured by might or fear, but by understanding, by connection, by the smallest act that could ripple across worlds and alter the course of history. The human remained near, simple pot in hand, preparing meals, quietly teaching the Dragon King the ways of warmth, taste, and care. And in doing so, the Dragon King's appetite returned, not for conquest, not for dominion, not for energy, but for life itself. And so, a new law of power was born. Strength alone was not enough. True power was knowing that even the smallest, most ordinary creatures could change the course of the universe, if only they were given the chance. The Dragon King now ate daily, savoring each bite, each flavor, each memory the food carried. And the galaxy learned a lesson it would not forget, that care, patience, and creation could hold more sway than fear, armies, or stars. Humans, once insignificant, became essential. And the Dragon King, who had ruled for eons, discovered something more precious than all his conquests. The quiet, enduring power of life made meaningful. The galaxy watched as even the stars seemed to shine softer, warmer, and somehow more alive. A new era had begun, not with fire and force, but with a simple pot of soup, and the courage of a small human who dared to feed a king.